Jurassic. Today we will go on an exciting and informative journey, covering an amazing Triassic period, which lasted about 50 million years. This is the era of the revival of life after the largest extinction in the history of our planet, when about 95% of all types disappeared. What was the land of that time? The climate is warm and humid. The continents are combined into a single supercontinent, Pangaea. Huge horsetails and ferns grow everywhere, as well as the first gymnosperms. This is a time of great biological experiments and amazing creatures. Let's start with Dinosaurs. Imagine a strong beast the size of a large dog, with a barrel-shaped body and short legs, crowned with a funny face with a beak. Dinosaurs were half-born animals and spent a lot of time in their underground burrows, which allowed them to experience severe conditions and avoid danger from predators. Thanks to the powerful front limbs, they effectively dug up shelters and mined the roots they ate. These strong creatures were so numerous that almost half of all the ground vertebrates were Dinosaurs. The next creature we get acquainted with is Cynognat. Imagine a creature similar to a large wolf or dog, but with a completely different anatomy. The Cynognat was about 5 feet in length and had a powerful, muscular body designed for quick running and lightning attacks. One of the main features of Cynognat was his strong jaws, equipped with an impressive set of sharp teeth, perfectly suitable for hunting for a variety of prey. From small reptiles and amphibians to larger animals. Due to their endurance and speed, Cynognata were formidable predators and occupied the upper positions in the food chains of that time. But what does Cynognat do especially interesting for scientists? This is his place in evolutionary history. The Cynognat belonged to the group of pteriodons, or the rash reptiles, from which the first real mammals subsequently occurred. Some features of the structure of Cynognat already resembled signs of mammals. Its limbs were located almost right under the body and not on the sides, which allowed him to move more efficiently and quickly. Scientists also believe that Cynognats could have a primitive wool that protected them from the temperature changes of the Triassic period. In addition, it is believed that Cynognats could show more complex behavior compared to other reptiles of that time. They could well take care of their offspring and, perhaps, even hunted in small groups, which was rare for that era. Thus, Cynognat is not just a prehistoric beast, but an important step on the way to the hiring exchange mammal. This unusual predator is a living proof of how nature is slowly but steadily experimenting, creating new forms of life and paving the way for evolutionary discoveries. Now let's move on to the Archosaurs. This is the most important group of animals of the Triassic period. Archosaurs are reptiles from which dinosaurs, crocodiles, and pterosaurs subsequently occurred. One of the first Archosaurs is an Eoraptor, a tiny pioneer of a Dinosaurus era, who lived about 231 million years ago. Imagine a small, light animal slightly more than 3 feet long, agile and dexterous, moving on 2 strong legs. The Eoraptor was an omnivorous hunter. He could catch small insects and lizards, as well as eat plants. It is considered one of the first real dinosaurs. Phytosaurs dominated in the reservoirs of the Triassic. These amazing reptiles, living about 230 million years ago, looked like modern crocodiles, but in fact were not their direct relatives. Phytosaurs were impressively large. Some species reached 30 feet in length. They had powerful jaws with long, sharp teeth, perfectly suitable for taking prey. Their eyes and nostrils were high on their heads, allowing phytosaurs to almost completely dive underwater, remaining invisible to the victim. This made them perfect masters of ambush. The diet of phytosaurs was diverse, from fish to small reptiles and even young dinosaurs, which inadvertently approached the water. With the help of their lightning attack, phytosaurs easily caught the victim, quickly pulling it underwater. However, despite the external resemblance to crocodiles, phytosaurs were only distant relatives of modern reptiles. They represented a separate branch of orchosaurs, which completely died out by the end of the Trias period, giving way to real crocodiles and dinosaurs. Pterosaurs reigned in the heaven of the Triassic period, the first flying reptiles. One of the early representatives is Eudomorphodon, one of the first flying creatures of the Triassic period, which lived about 210 million years ago. Imagine a small reptile with a wave of wings a little more than 3 feet, rapidly soaring over ancient ponds and forests. Eudomorphodon was one of the first representatives of pterosaurs, a unique group of flying reptiles that mastered airspace long before the birds. One of the most interesting features of this creature was his toothy beak, equipped with many sharp teeth of various shapes and sizes, thanks to which he easily caught small fish and insects right on the fly. These pterosaurs had wings formed from thin leather stretched between the elongated fingers of the front limbs and the body. This allowed them incredibly quickly to maneuver to and deftly evade larger predators. Eudomorphodons lived in coastal areas, spending most of the time in flight and landing only for relaxation and possibly laying eggs. It was Eudomorphodon and his relatives that were the first to discover airspace for vertebrates, laying the road to the giant pterosaurs of the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. Now let's pay attention to the Sea of Trias. The water spaces of that time were populated by ichthyosaurs, similar to dolphins, but are reptiles. Myxosaur, the ancient inhabitant of the oceans, who lived about 240 million years ago. Myxorians were early representatives of ichthyosaurs. This is a unique group of sea reptiles, which in their appearance resembled modern dolphins. These swift swimmers reached about 7 feet in length and had streamlined body, which allowed them to easily maneuver and develop high speeds underwater. The peculiarity of the microsuits is large eyes that help them hunt in deep waters, even with a lack of light. Their jaws were filled with sharp, conical teeth, perfectly suitable for capturing fish and squid, forming the basis of their nutrition. But one of the most interesting details was the fact that the myxosaurs were vigorous. They did not lay eggs on land, but gave birth to living cubs right in the water. This unique feature allowed them to completely break away from the coastline and conquer the open ocean. Myxosavers became one of the first successful sea predators, opening the way for larger and famous ichthyosaurs, which will later dominate the seas of the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. Also, sea and coastal ecosystems were a home for nodosaurs, semi-water reptiles with long necks, which could swim freely and go to land. They hunted fish and mollusks, resting on the shores, warming under the sun's rays. But the Trias period was not only reptiles. Before you is an extremely important creature of the Triassic period, Morganucodon, one of the first real mammals living about 205 million years ago. Imagine a tiny animal, the size of no more than a mouse or shrew, clever and inconspicuous, leading a secretive lifestyle under cover of night. Morganucodon had a small, elongated body, probably covered with thin wool that protected it from temperature differences. These creatures had sharp teeth that allowed them to easily eat insects and small invertebrates. Thanks to their small size and a careful lifestyle, Morganeuchodons successfully avoided meetings with large reptiles. The owners of the Trias period. The fact that Morganeuchodon was already very close in structure to modern mammals is interesting. He had a developed lower ileus, which consisted of one bone, a distinctive feature of mammals, which allows you to better chew food. Moreover, probably, Morganeuchodons could already take care of their offspring, which provided them with an advantage in the struggle for survival. This is a small creature resembling modern shoes, leading a secretive lifestyle, avoiding large predators. It is amazing how the Trias period laid the foundation for future ecosystems, giving the world the first forms of animals that will dominate millions of years. It was then that the era of dinosaurs began. The foundations for the appearance of birds and modern mammals were formed. Imagine an animal that looks like a turtle, up to 10 feet long, with a massive body covered with a strong carapace that protected it from predators. This is a plaster. Plastodonts were real masters of mollusk mining and crustaceans. Their powerful jaws, with flat, durable teeth, easily shredded shells of even the most solid mollusks, allowing them to get tasty and nutritious meat. Thanks to their shell and severe physique, the plastodonts confidently felt in coastal waters, protected from most predators of their time. An interesting feature of the plastocontates is their swimming method. They were not too fast, so they often moved slowly along the bottom of the sea, collecting food and remaining almost invisible. This lifestyle made them a unique part of the Triassic marine ecosystem, emphasizing the amazing variety of forms that life has accepted during this period. Plastodonts, although they died out by the end of the Trias, forever left a mark in the history of evolution, demonstrating amazing adaptations of nature and its ability to create unique creatures adapted to life in various conditions. And here is another amazing creature of the Trias, Nodosaurus. These unusual reptiles lived about 210 million years ago and were real marine wanderers of the ancient world. Imagine an animal with a long body, an outstretched neck, and webbed paws, similar simultaneously to a seal and a lizard. The length of the Nodosaurs was up to 13 feet. Their flexible body and powerful limbs allowed them to swim perfectly and deftly maneuver underwater in search of fish and mollusks, which formed the basis of their diet. Nodosaurs led a semi-water lifestyle. Although they felt perfectly at sea, hunting and avoiding danger in the water, preferred to rest and multiply on land. It was on the shores of the ancient seas that they warmed under the rays of the sun, probably gathering in small groups like modern sea lions. One of the features of the Nodosaurs was their long, sharp teeth, perfectly suitable for fishing. The structure of their body was so successful that it was the Nodosaurs who read. They are subject to the ancestors of pliosaurs and plesiosaurs, which in turn were the legendary marine predators of the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. Imagine a reptile that looked so strange that many paleontologists at first could not even believe in its existence. This is a Tanistrophe. Tanistrophe lived about 242 million years ago, and its main difference was an incredibly long neck. This is about half of the total body length that could reach 20 feet. Outwardly, he resembled a giant snake on thin but strong paws. Scientists argued for a long time for which Tanistropheus needed such an amazing neck. Today, most researchers agree that Tanistrophe led a half-water lifestyle hunting fish. He, most likely, stood motionless on the shore or in shallow water and quickly grabbed prey from the water with his unusually long neck. In addition, A long neck allowed Tanystropheus to quietly draw up to prey, remaining outside her field of view. However, despite its unique adaptation, it was not so simple to move to Tanystropheus. On land, his movements were slow and clumsy. Tanystropheus is one of the most unusual examples of the evolutionary experiment of nature, demonstrating how much the life forms of the Trias period could vary. An amazing creature about which we continue to learn new details, thanks to the finds of scientists around the world. And this is the formidable Hererazar, one of the first real predatory dinosaurs in the history of the Earth. Hererazar was an impressive animal, reaching up to 13 feet in length and weighed about 200 kilograms. Imagine a creature with a muscular body, powerful hind limbs, and large, sharp teeth, perfectly suitable for capturing and retaining production. This early dinosaur was an extremely clever and quick predator that could easily catch up and attack the animals of his time, such as small reptiles, early dinosaurs, and even amphibians. Hererazar possessed strong front paws with sharp claws that helped him to keep and immobilize the victim. The finds of the remains of Hererazar in Argentina allow scientists to assume that he occupied the upper levels of the Triassic food chain. This was one of the first steps of nature on the way to the era of dominance of large predatory dinosaurs, such as Allosaurus and Tyrannosaurus, that will appear later. We can say that Hererazar is a key link in evolution, one of the first successful examples of how dinosaurs began to win the world, paving the road to the most famous predators in the history of our planet. Let's talk about the Rhynchosaur. This is one of the most successful and widespread animals of the Trias period. Rhynchosaurs were amazing creatures, the size of a sheep or pig, from the mass, the stocky body, and short, strong legs. However, their most unusual feature. This is a unique beak-shaped mouth, equipped with sharp, cutting edges, ideally adapted for grinding hard vegetation and roots. These herbivores were extremely numerous and widespread throughout the supercontinent of Pangaea. Their success is associated with their ability to survive on very meager and rough plant foods, which other animals simply could not absorb. This made rhynchosaurs the most important creatures of the Triassic ecosystems, a kind of gardeners of their era. Surprisingly, the rhynchosaurs made up a significant part of all the ground animals of the Triassic, being the main prey for many predators of that time. Their large number and accessibility have become an important factor in the development of the first large carnivorous dinosaurs and other archosaurs. By the end of the Trias, the rhynchosaurs completely disappeared, giving way to new, more specialized animals. Now get acquainted with the proportion. He was one of the first large ground predators who dominated the ground about 250 million years ago, immediately after the Great Perm extinction. Imagine a reptile of about 10 feet long, reminiscent of modern crocodiles, but much more ancient and primitive. Proterozoic had a long, slender body, powerful paws, and an elongated head with impressive jaws full of sharp teeth. These early predators were active hunters, attacking small reptiles, amphibians, and fish. Despite the external resemblance to crocodiles, the propaganda was not an aquatic animal. He hunted mainly on land, actively pursuing his prey and using sharp attacks to grab it with powerful jaws. Proterozoic. This is a striking example of how life was quickly restored after global disasters. These reptiles played an important role in the ecosystems of the early Trias, becoming one of the first successful large ground predators of the New World. Although the propaganda disappeared in the first half of the Triassic period, they became an important evolutionary step opening the way for more specialized and perfect predators, such as phytosaurs and early dinosaurs, which will later take dominant positions in the animal world of the planet. And finally, we will talk about a little-known but extremely important creature of the Triassic period. This is a scales, one of the earliest mammals that lived about 200 million years ago at the very end of the Trias. Stracodon was very tiny, the size of a mouse or a shrew, weighing only a few dozen grams. He led a night lifestyle, hiding from the dominant dinosaurs and reptiles that ruled the planet in the afternoon. Under the cover of darkness, Stracodon went hunting, eating insects, larvae, and other small invertebrates. Interestingly, the structure of the skull and teeth of the Stracodon already much resembled modern mammals. He had clearly expressed incisors, fangs, and molars. This is an important sign that separates mammals from their ancestors. And his lower jaw consisted of one bone, as with you. Unlike more primitive animals, scientists suggest that Stracodon already had wool that protects from temperature changes and possibly even rudiments of warm-blooded. This is the ability to maintain constant body temperature. All this made him incredibly hardy and adapted to life in the world of giants. Welcome to the exciting world of the Jurassic period. Today we will go to the ancient ocean to explore the life of one of the most amazing creatures of that time. These are ichthyosaurs, ophthalmosaurs, and darkondosaurs. Ichthyosaurs were marine reptiles perfectly adapted to life underwater. With an appearance resembling modern dolphins, they possessed an extremely streamlined body and powerful flippers, thanks to which they deftly maneuvered and developed impressive speed in pursuit of fish and squid. Ophthalmosaurus. This is a unique representative of ichthyosaurs, known for his huge eyes. These eyes were one of the largest in the animal world, reaching up to 9.8 inches in diameter. They allowed the ophthalmosauria to see perfectly at great depths, where pitch darkness reigned. He hunted deep-sea squids and fish, easily focusing in the darkness of the ocean depths. Meanwhile, at the top of the seafood chain, there was a Dinosaurus, an impressive predator, reaching a length of up to 40 feet. Its powerful jaws were armed with impressive teeth that could cope even with large prey, such as smaller ichthyosaurs and large fish. His strategy was effective and fast. A sudden attack from the depths, after which the prey no longer had a chance of salvation. Plesiosaurs were one of the most recognizable sea reptiles of that time. Their silhouette resembled the legendary inhabitant of Loch Ness. A long neck, a small head, and a powerful body equipped with 4 strong fins. Their swimming was smooth and elegant, like a ballet in slow motion. These animals could reach 5 to 50 feet in length and deftly hunted fish and squid. One of the most famous plesiosaurs was Cryptoclide. This clever marine hunter reached up to 26 feet in length and had a long, flexible neck with sharp, bent teeth, perfectly suitable for grabbing fine prey. The Cryptoclide usually swam in coastal waters and in shallow water, slowly circling among algae and coral reefs, deftly grabbing anything unsuspecting fish from their shelters. Another wonderful representative of this group was Tyrannosaurus. It stood out with an extremely long neck, which consisted of numerous vertebrae and could make up almost half the length of his body, reaching a total length of about 33 feet. Thanks to such a neck, the Tyrannosaurus was able to maneuver and hunt for prey in the most inaccessible places of the seabed, extracting sea creatures from the cracks and crevice, which seemed inaccessible to other predators. 3 more amazing representatives of the Jurassic period: Plesiosaur, Lyopleuron, and Pelinium. Let's start with Plesiosaur, a powerful sea hunter, reaching a length of up to 50 feet. Thiso was a huge animal with a massive head armed with huge teeth resembling daggers. Its powerful jaws could easily develop almost any prey, from large fish to young plesiosaurs. Plesiosaur was a real giant and undoubted owner of the ancient ocean. But even Plesiosaur had a worthy competitor, famous Lyoplaton. This predator, about 33 feet long, had an extremely sharp sense of smell, thanks to which he could detect prey for several kilometers. His massive body and powerful flippers allowed him to make lightning-fast jerks to the victim, making him one of the most effective hunters of his time. With his huge teeth, he easily broke the flesh of large prey, providing himself with championship among naval reptiles. Among these giants, Peliniema also stood out, the significantly smaller representative of the plesiosaurs, who reached only about 10 feet in length. However, this compact size gave him a huge advantage: dexterity and maneuverability. Peliniustus hunted smaller prey, such as fish and squid, rapidly pursuing them in the thickets of seaweed and rocky reefs. Its narrow, oblong jaws made it possible to catch fast and agile prey with surgical accuracy. Now, we will transfer to the land of the Jurassic period. Let's see who lived in thick forests, marshy areas, and endless plains. In the vast expanses covered with thick vegetation, incredible creatures ruled: ground dinosaurs. Among them, two giant predators stood out especially: Allosaurus and his close relative, Sauropodomorpha. Allosaurus was one of the most successful and common Jurassic predators. This impressive dinosaur reached a length of up to 33 feet and weighed about 2 tons. He was distinguished by strong hind legs, allowing him to quickly pursue the prey, and powerful front paws with sharp claws, which helped to hold and break the victim. The Allosaurus hunted both one by one and in small groups, tracking large herbivorous dinosaurs, such as diplods and stegosaurs. But even the Allosaurus was not the largest predator of his time. In the same lands, an even more impressive hunter dominated: Sauropodomorpha. Its name literally means lizard eater. And it was deserved. The length of his body exceeded 40 feet, and the mass could reach 4 tons. This giant was one of the largest predators who have ever inhabited land. Sauropodomorpha could easily compete with other large predators for the territory and prey. His hunting strategy was simple but effective: an ambush and a lightning attack. Powerful jaws, armed with long, sharp teeth, allowed him to easily cope with common sauropods. It is possible that it was Sauropodomorpha who occupied the top of the food chain of the South period, dominating in ancient ecosystems. The Megalosaurus, whose name is translated as the Great Lizard, went down in history as the first dinosaur, officially described by science. He lived about 166 million years ago in Jurassic Europe. With a length of up to 30 feet and sharp, curved teeth, the Megalosaurus was an active predator, probably hunting large herbivores. His body was strong and balanced. The long tail provided balance, and the hind legs were quick acceleration. This dinosaur was the top of the food chain of its time. And now we will go from warm Jurassic England to the ice Antarctica. Here at the beginning of the Jurassic period, about 190 million years ago, another predator lived: Cryolophosaur. His name means frozen rowing lizard. In honor of the intricate bone crest decorating his skull, this predator, about 23 feet long, was not only a dangerous hunter, but possibly used his comb to demonstrate or recognize relatives. Surprisingly, he lived in conditions that are today associated with eternal permafrost, although then the climate was much softer. Compassionate, one of the smallest and dexterous dinosaurs known to science, the size of a domestic cat. This agile hunter quickly moved along the forest litter, hunting for insects, lizards, and other small creatures. His speed and quick wit allowed him to survive in the world of giant predators. The compass used the strategy of quick attack and the equally rapid retreat, avoiding meeting with larger rivals. Uequator, another small predator, opened relatively recently. Its name is translated as hunter from Ura, about 3 feet long. The gigantor had a graceful body and sharp teeth, perfectly adapted for catching fine prey. It is noteworthy that the fossils of the Uequator retain traces of soft tissues, which suggests that the body of this dinosaur was covered with primitive feathers or similar structures that helped him maintain heat and possibly even disguised in dense thickets. Ornithischian, the name of which means bird kidnapper, was a little larger, up to 7 feet in length. Its distinctive feature was long, tenacious front paws with powerful claws with which he cleverly seized prey. Despite the name, Ornithischian probably hunted not only on early birds, but also small dinosaurs and other animals. He was one of the most successful and universal hunters of his era. Now let's talk about herbivores, one of the most famous giants of the past. Diplodocus. Imagine a creature up to 88 feet long with a neck and tail, which together made up most of his body. His neck was crowned by a small head, ideally adapted for breaking foliage from trees. The Diplodoc calmly wandered around the valleys and plains, absorbing huge amounts of plant food daily. Its massive tail served not only a counterweight, but also a powerful means of protection against predators. With one blow, he could drive away even the most persistent hunter. Another majestic representative of Sauropods, a patasaur, once known as a brontosaur. This is an impressive animal, reaching a length of up to 82 feet and masses up to 30 tons, differed in a particularly powerful and strong body. The Apatosaurus moved slowly and majestically, eating stiff conifers and ferns. Due to its mass and strong structure, the Apatosaurus was almost invulnerable to most predators of its time. Now let's pay attention to a more unusual oteropod. This is Brachytrachelopan. This dinosaur was significantly different from its brothers, with an unusually short neck. The length of Brachytrachelopan did not exceed 33 feet, and he preferred to eat vegetation growing closer to the ground. His compact body allowed him to maneuver in thick thickets, obtaining food inaccessible to other giants with long necks. It was Sauropod, which chose a completely different path of evolution. And finally, the Mamensaur, the owner of one of the most impressive necks in the history of the animal world. The length of his neck reached almost half of the total body length, amounting to about 40 feet. Such an extreme anatomical feature allowed Mamensaur to eat foliage from the highest trees, remaining outside of competition among other sauropods. Imagine a graceful animal, slowly sliding neck among the branches, like a giant living crane. Stegosaur, this dinosaur of about 30 feet long, was known for its spectacular bone plates along the back and formidable spikes on the tail. Its name is translated as a Kreischoyashker, and despite an impressive look, it was a peaceful herbivore. Scientists suggest that the massive plates served Stegosaur to regulate body temperature, or helped to scare the predators and attract the attention of the opposite sex. The tail, armed with spikes, effectively defended him from attacks by large predators like Allosaurus. His closest relative, Kenthrosaurus, was a little smaller, about 16 feet in length, but his defense was even more impressive. The body of this dinosaur was covered not only with plates, but also with sharp spikes that stuck up and to the sides, creating almost impenetrable armor. Who lived in dense thickets of Jurassic vegetation, Kenthrosaurus ate stunted plants and ferns, preferring to avoid conflicts, but if necessary, was capable of violently defend. Against the backdrop of these armored giants, a camptosaur was stood out. A clever and agile grass dinosaur, the length of which reached 23 feet. Camptosaurus moved mainly on his hind legs, which allowed him to quickly run away from danger and get higher branches of plants. His name means bending lizard, which is associated with the flexibility of his body and maneuverability, which made his life among giants safer and more convenient. And finally, the smallest participant in our story, Drinker, no more than 7 feet long. This small but very agile dinosaur led a secretive lifestyle among dense vegetation, avoiding meetings with larger and dangerous neighbors. Eating soft leaves and shoots, the Drinker was one of the first dinosaurs for whom running and dexterity was the key to survival in the harsh world of the Jurassic period. Delivery. This agile grass dinosaur, a little more than 5 feet long, had a graceful physique that allowed him to easily avoid meeting with predators. Smellia was fed by soft vegetation, seeds, and fruits, moving mainly on 2 hind legs in order to quickly hide from danger and deftly maneuver among shrubs and thickets. Due to its speed and caution, she successfully survived in a world full of giants. The Ankylosaur was a small herbivore dinosaur, about 7 feet in length. He moved mainly on 4 paws, although he could stand on the rear to reach delicious leaves or twigs. Possessing a harmonious physique and a long, flexible neck, the Ankylosaurus easily reached hard-to-reach vegetation, avoiding competition with larger animals. Another interesting representative of that time was Massasphoic. It was a larger relative of Ankylosaurus, reaching a length of about 13 feet. Its distinctive feature was a long neck and powerful front limbs with sharp claws that he used to extract food. Despite the impressive dimensions, Massasphoic was a peaceful herbivore fed by the leaves and shoots of plants. Long before the first birds, before the appearance of giant pterosaurs, the heaven of the Jurassic period already belonged to one of the first flying vertebrates. Rhamphoran. This is a pterosaurus that lived about 150 million years ago. He was relatively small. The scope of its wings was about 3 feet. But despite the modest size, Rhamphoran was a magnificent flyer. Its long tail with a rhombus end acted as a stabilizer, helping to maintain balance and maneuver in flight. The toothy mouth of Rhamphoran speaks for itself. He was a clever hunter. His sharp, curved teeth were perfect for capture of fish. He dived over the water surface, catching prey right on leg, eye, like modern tones or cutting. Scientists suggest that the Rhamphorans, like modern seabirds, could nest on coastal rocks and lead a colonial lifestyle. Although Rhamphoran was a distant ancestor of later pterosaurs with a huge scale of wings, his body structure shows us the beginning of a great evolutionary experiment. Conquesting the sky, these flying reptiles became the first vertebrates to master the air element. And finally, we will talk about the essence that occupies a special place in the history of life on Earth. This is Archaeopteryx. He was not just an ancient bird, and not just a dinosaur. He was a link, a living transition between two great evolutionary worlds. These are reptiles and birds. Archaeopteryx lived about 150 million years ago, in the late Jurassic period. His remains were first found in the limestone of Bavaria, in the ancient archipelago where warm lagons once raged and tropical groves grew. The size of a dove, Archaeopteryx had the features of both birds and dinosaurs. Feeders, wings, and collarbone, like birds, but teeth, a long bony tail, and claws on the wings, like that of theropodic dinosaurs. Did he be able to fly? Most scientists believe yes, but not like modern birds. His flight was most likely intermittent, similar to planing between branches. Perhaps he soared short jumps from the ground, or descended from a height, like a protein letag. This style of movement helped to avoid predators and hunt insects and small lizards. Archaeopteryx is not just an ancient bird. This is a living illustration of how gradually, step by step, nature transformed ground predators into air wanderers. He was neither completely dinosaur nor a real bird. He was a transition, turning point in the history of evolution. Today we have an unusual hero, the Tiktaalik. This creature, which lived about 375 million years ago, has become a real symbol of evolution. Let's figure out that such an amazing creature was so amazing. The Tiktaalik is perhaps one of the most important heroes of ancient life history on our planet. Why? Because it is he who stands at the junction of two worlds, water and terrestrial. Imagine a fish that could not only swim, but also confidently move around shallow water, relying on its powerful fins, almost like paws. Yes, Tiktaalik had amazing fins with bones that look like our hands and legs. So why did the fish need to get out of the water? Scientists believe that at that time, the competition in the aquatic environment was very strong, and some animals began to master new niches for survival. Tiktaalik was one of the first such daredevils. His body was perfectly adapted for shallow lead and swampy territories, where he could hide from large water predators and find new food. These were various invertebrates and small animals that lived on the border of water and land. The offspring of the Tiktaalik, as befits real fish, developed in water. However, young individuals quickly acquired the ability to be on land for a short time. This adaptation gave them a huge advantage in survival, because they could avoid danger and look for food in completely new places. The most interesting, the descendants of the Tiktaalik continued to develop these abilities, and gradually they had real limbs that could withstand the body on land for a long time. Thus began the great transition of life from water to land, thanks to which all terrestrial animals appeared in the end, including you with you. Tiktaalik. This is not just an ancient fish, it is a real evolutionary bridge between the two worlds. Sharks of the Devonian period appeared much earlier than the Tiktaalik, about 400 million years ago, and even then, they were distinguished by an incredible adaptability to life in water expanses. By the way, they were older than the first trees. It turns out that the first tree is 50 million years younger than sharks. Amazing creatures with a streamlined body and sharp teeth, perfectly suitable for capture and retain prey. But why exactly the sharks were so successfully fixed in the role of sea predators? Let's look at this issue from different angles. Firstly, the sharks of Devona possessed several key evolutionary advantages. A cartilage skeleton that made them light and quick, and incredibly sharp teeth that can recover after loss. These features provided them with a significant advantage in survival and hunting. Another important factor, this is vibrant. Unlike most ancient fish, which they put caviar, Triassic gave birth to living cubs. This significantly increased the chances of young animals for survival, as young sharks were immediately ready for active movement and independent nutrition. In addition, the sharks of Devona were the first to form complex hunting strategies. They used their excellent senses, such as smell and sideline, to detect the victim at a great distance. This allowed them to dominate the ecosystem, occupying the upper levels of the food chain. It is also interesting that the appearance of sharks has become an important catalyst for evolutionary processes. Their presence stimulated the development of protective mechanisms in other marine inhabitants, contributing to evolutionary diversity. Let's talk about a very special shark, Claudoslachia. Do not worry, the name sounds like something from Greek mythology, but this is really an ancient shark. And yes, today we will find out why she became a real star of her time, long before the sharks began to scare vacationers on the beaches. So Claudoslachia, she lived about 370 million years ago in the Devonian period, when the oceans were a real resort for all kinds of strange creatures. A pretty shark cannot be called, but in the nomination Best Adaptation to Life, it would be among the winners. Firstly, let's discuss her physique. Claudoslachia had a rather elegant silhouette, a slender body streamlined as a racing car, and a feature that perhaps was its main advantage: flexibility and speed. Imagine an ancient oceanic car, ready at any moment to break off and rush to the gaping prey. If she had her own motto, he would have sounded something like this: the fastest. Otherwise, you will remain hungry. Now about the teeth. In the Pantoslachia, the teeth were small but very sharp, ideally suitable for catching small and mobile prey, such as small fish and cephalopods. Not the most formidable weapon, but quite effective for its lifestyle. She was, one might say, Gurman of the Devonian period. No coarse food, only small, exquisite sea cuisine. By the way, the Triassic was one of the first sharks to use live up. That is, the cubs were born already completely prepared for an independent life. The sharks immediately settled down, like small missiles, ready to hunt for everything that was moving, and were careful enough to be eaten. Parents were probably proud of them, although it is not customary for the sharks to take care of the offspring for a long time. Young Pantoslachia immediately received complete freedom of action. If you think about it, the Pantoslachia has become an important milestone in the history of sharks, paving the path for many species that live in the oceans today. And let it not be so waking as modern white sharks, or so bizarre as a helicoprion with its tooth spiral. But she knew exactly what it was to be a successful predator of the Devonian period. Imagine a shark, but not just a shark, but a predator who decided that ordinary teeth were too boring and trite. Instead of a jaw usual with rows of teeth, Gelicoprion had something completely unusual: tooth spiral. A whole spiral of teeth resembling a circular saw, which was located right inside its lower jaw. But let's talk seriously. Why did the Helicoprion need such a design? Scientists raised their heads for a long time, trying to understand how he could eat and survive with such a device in his mouth. It is assumed that Helicoprion used this spiral to deftly cut soft squids and other cephalopods, which he probably ate. Too complicated device for a shark. Why fence such a garden? We are not clear, but nature probably had their own plans for this shark. Another interesting aspect, this is the size of the Helicoprion. Some species have reached a length of up to 23 feet, which makes it even more impressive and, say, a frightening character of the SeaWorld. Fortunately for us, these unusual creatures lived about 290 million years ago, so the chance to meet them today is zero. We have enough ordinary sharks. Interestingly, Gelicoprion has long remained a mystery to paleontologists. At first, the finds of his spiral teeth were so strange that they were even mistaken for some mysterious ancient shells. Only relatively recently, scientists finally figured out who belonged to these dental spirals and introduced the Helicoprion to the world in all its absurd glory. Shark ginsa, or scientifically, Cretoxoxen. Why is it called that? And what was special in this sea inhabitant? Let's figure it out. So, the shark ginsa, or Bretoxoxen, lived about 100 million years ago in the late Cretaceous period. It was not in vain that I got its name, reminiscent of a set of kitchen knives. After all, her teeth were a real work of art, long, sharp, and incredibly effective. If there was a rating of the most formidable smiles of the Mesozoic, it would definitely take the first place. But why precisely gins? If you remember the advertisement of knives that cut absolutely everything, then the shark gins could well act as an advertising agent of such products. Her teeth were so sharp and durable that they easily cut out the flesh and even the bones of its prey. These were real universal instruments of the Mesozoic seas. The length of the shark gins reached 23 feet, which made it one of the largest predators of her time. Her diet was very diverse. She ate almost everything that fell she is on her way, from large fish and cephalopods to small sea reptiles. If you were in the ocean at that time, you would clearly not want to catch the eye of this shark if you just do not like extreme. Humorous speaking, shark ginsa was a kind of sea chef. She has always been ready for cutting any prey. Imagine it as a kind of restaurant critic who does not choose what exactly is. The main thing is the speed and effectiveness of the absorption of the dish. From the point of view of the evolution of shark gins, it was extremely successful. It flourished over millions of years, and its existence pushed other marine inhabitants to develop new survival strategies. Imagine that you are a small fish of that time, and your main incentive for evolution is not to become a breakfast of shark ginsa. Motivation, I must admit, is very convincing. The real giant of the ancient oceans, Dunkeli. The name sounds impressive, right? This is an ancient fish that could inspire Hollywood to create a blockbuster of horror. But what is really hiding behind this loud name? Let's figure it out. The main part. So imagine the ocean about 360 million years ago in the Devonian period. Dunkeli reigned in these waters. Giant shellfish, the size of a small bus, its length could reach 30 feet. And the jaws were so powerful that he easily bought even the most durable armor of other inhabitants of the ocean. Seriously, the jaws of Dunkleosta deserve a separate conversation. Instead of his usual teeth, he had huge bone plates with sharp edges, which worked as giant scissors or nippers. Imagine a shark that has giant scissors instead of teeth. It sounds creepy, right? And the most funny, these teeth have never stooped. They were simply constantly updated and grew up again and again. Why did nature decide to give Dunkleosta such an unusual design? The answer is simple. It was an ideal tool for survival in the conditions of brutal competition of the Devonian period. Dunkeli ate everything that he could catch, from large fish to mollusks and even small sharks. His hunting strategy was simple: a powerful attack from an ambush, a lightning throw, and a sharp blow with jaws. From the point of view of the ancient ocean menu, he was a gourmet with very broad preferences. It is also interesting that despite his frightening appearance and incredible power, Dunkeli was not a particularly quick swimmer. He relied on the effect of surprise and his great power. We can say that it was such an ancient ocean terminator, slow, but incredibly effective and persistent. So Dunkeli was not just a large predator, but a real evolutionary sensation of his times. His amazing adaptations allowed him to become the top of the food chain of the ancient seas. And although today we are glad that we cannot meet him live, it is worth admitting that Dunkeli has left an indelible mark on the history of life on Earth.
Whom the ancient predators were afraid. Tyrannosaurus rex was one of the largest and strongest predators of his time. But even such a powerful creature could have fear or avoid a clash with other animals, although he had practically no real enemies. Here are a few creatures that could cause fears among the Tyrannosaurus. Tyrannosaurs were territorial animals and could enter into conflicts with each other. Finds of fossil bones show traces of bites and serious injuries, which proves brutal contractions between individuals beyond the territory, food, or partners. Triceratops possessed a massive body and long sharp horns. An adult Triceratops could pose a serious threat to a Tyrannosaurus. On the bones of tyrannosaurs, traces of wounds caused by the horns of these herbivores are often found. Ankylosaurs were covered with powerful bone armor and possessed a massive mace at the end of the tail. The blow of this pin could break bones or seriously injure a Tyrannosaurus. The Tyrannosaurus preferred to avoid a fight with large adult ankylosaurs. In reality, the main fear for the Tyrannosaurus was not a meeting with a specific opponent, but hunger or serious injuries that could lead to the impossibility of hunting and subsequent death. Events such as forest fires, floods, or volcanic activity could also cause panic or fear of Tyrannosaurus, since it was powerless to resist the forces of nature. Although the Tyrannosaurus was the top of the food chain, he was not absolutely invulnerable and could be afraid of individual animals or situations that threatened his life and prosperity. The Spinosaurus was the largest predatory dinosaur known today and reached impressive sizes of up to 60 feet in length. Despite this, even he could face worthy opponents. A large predator about 43 feet long with powerful jaws and teeth similar to shark. Carcharodontosaurus lived at the same time with Spinosaur. The struggle between them could be fierce. Sarcosuchus, a giant prehistoric crocodile, reaching a length of up to 40 feet. Sarcosuch lived in rivers and lakes, was an excellent predator in the water, and could successfully compete with the Spinosaurus for prey. The conflict between them could be likely near reservoirs. Rugops, predatory dinosaur of medium sized up to 26 feet in length. Although he was inferior to the Spinosaur in size, the flock of Rugops could pose a serious threat in competition in the struggle for food. Like most large predators, conflicts between representatives of the same species could be frequent. The struggle for the territory, food resources, or partners could lead to serious fights between two adult Spinosaurs. Paralitodon, a giant sauropod, more than 80 feet long and weighing up to 60 tons. Despite the fact that this is a voyage dinosaur, he possessed huge sizes, and even one blow of his massive tail or leg could become fatal for Spinosaur. Large pterosaurs, for example, as Darkids. Despite the fact that there would be no direct battle between them, pterosaurs could compete for prey, for example, fish, especially if the Spinosaur was greatly dependent on the fish diet. Thus, the Spinosaur, although it was one of the largest and most powerful dinosaurs, still faced serious competition and threats from other mighty predators and giant animals of his era. Allosaurus was a large and powerful predator of the late Jurassic period about 155 million years ago. Although the Allosaurus occupied a high stage of the food chain of its time, there were several creatures and factors that could cause fears or to pose a serious danger. The most serious opponents of Allosaur were other representatives of his own species. Competition for the territory, food, or partners could lead to fierce contractions. On the remains of Allosaurs, evidence of such battles is often found, bites and injuries inflicted by other individuals. Sauropods, for example, diplods, brachiosaurs. Despite the fact that Allosaurs hunted young and sick sauropods, adults of Diplodocus, Brachiosaurus and other giant herbivores were dangerous prey. Massive bodies, powerful legs and heavy tails of these dinosaurs could cause serious injuries or even kill the attacker of Allosaurus. Stegosaur possessed massive spikes on the tail, the so-called tagonizer, which could effectively defend himself from attack. The tail of the Stegosaurus could easily injure or kill even such a large predator as Allosaurus. Torvosaur was one of the largest carnivorous dinosaurs, which lived simultaneously with the Allosaur. He was more massive and had more powerful jaws. A collision with a Torvosaur, especially for prey, could lead to serious consequences. Although the Ceratosaurus was slightly less than the Allosaurus, it possessed strong jaws and a large horn on the nose, which could cause dangerous injuries. This was especially true for fights for the territory and prey. The real threats for Allosaurus were also hunger and injuries. Any serious injury could deprive him of the ability to hunt, which would inevitably lead to death from hunger or attack of other predators. Allosaurs, like other creatures, could be afraid of natural disasters such as volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, floods and fires before which they were powerless. Although the Allosaurus was one of the main predators of the Jurassic period, it was not absolutely invulnerable and had many reasons to avoid clashes with certain animals and situations. Velociraptor was relatively small, but an extremely effective predator of the late Nerd period, about 70 million years ago. Due to their sizes, and this is 6 feet long and weighed up to 15 kilograms, cyclists were vulnerable to larger predators and had many dangerous competitors. The greatest competition was bicycle cyclists by representatives of their own type. The struggle for food, territory, or partners often led to aggressive clashes. Deinonychus, a larger relative of the cycling, which also had powerful sickle claws on the hind legs. Deinonychus was stronger, larger, and could easily displace cycling from their hunting areas. Tarbosaurus, a huge predator, about 40 feet long, a close relative of the Tyrannosaurus, who lived in the same regions as the cycling. This is modern Mongolia. Tarbosaurus could kill cycling and take prey from them, pose a deadly threat. Protoceratops. Although it was a herbivore dinosaur, he posed a serious threat to a cyclist. The Protoceratops was a massive animal with a strong beak and a powerful body that could cause serious injuries. Fraternal finds are known that demonstrate a deadly battle between these two types. Oviraptors were omnivorous dinosaurs up to 7 feet in size, which could compete with cyclists for eggs, chicks, and small prey. Although direct contractions were rare, competition for food resources was inevitable. Sauropods, another small lorad, about 10 feet that inhabited Mongolia at the same time. He was dexterous and fast, which made him a competitor to the cycliptor when hunting small animals and reptiles. Troodon, smart and clever dinosaur in size up to 7 feet. Troodons hunted flocks and had large eyes, allowing them to successfully hunt at night. They could compete with cycling, displacing them from the richest hunting grounds. Large flying reptiles, with a wave of wings up to 33 feet, could hunt for the same small animals in carrion as the cycling, representing competition for resources. Mosasaurus were large marine reptiles that prevailed in the Latial period about 82 million years ago. They were at the top of the food chain of sea ecosystems of their time. However, even such powerful predators had serious and dangerous competitors. The main competition of the mosasaurs took place with representatives of their own species or with other mosasaurids, for example, Tylosaur or Vitriol. The struggle for territory, prey, and partners could lead to fierce contractions. Tyrannosaurus. A huge mosasauride reaching up to 50 feet in length. Tyrannosaurus had powerful jaws and aggressive character, which made it a serious competitor for the mosasaurs. Both species could enter into contractions for prey and territory. Pliosaurs. Gig-mounted sea reptiles with massive jaws, living about the start of the spread of the mosasaurs. Although chronologically, pliosaurs more often lived a little earlier than the mosasaurs, some of their species could partially coexist, competing for resources. Cretaceous mantelli, the so-called shark prize, was a large predator, up to 26 feet long, inhabiting the Sea of Lake Chalk. These sharks could compete with the mosasaurs for food and even attack young or sick mosasaurians. Zyphactinus. A huge predatory fish, reaching up to 20 feet long. Zyphactin possessed powerful jaws and sharp teeth and could compete with young or medium-sized mosasaurs for food. Elasmosaurs were long-length marine reptiles, capable of reaching 46 feet long. They occupied similar ecological niches, competing for fish and cephalopods. In some cases, the mosa ugglers could attack them, but adult individuals of elasmosaurs could successfully fight off and even injure the attackers. Megalodon or Otodus megalodon was the largest predatory shark in the history of the Earth, which lived about 23 million years ago. Reaching a size of 60 feet in length, Megalodon dominated the sea ecosystems and occupied the top of the food chain. Despite this, Megalodon had competitors and potentially dangerous opponents. The most serious clashes could occur between megalodons for food resources, territory, or partners. Finding teeth with damage indicates cruel contractions between individuals. Leviathan melvillei. A giant predatory sperm whale, reaching about 55 feet in length. He possessed huge teeth up to 36 centimeters long and powerful jaws, capable of applying deep wounds. Leviathan ate large marine animals and was a real competitor to Megalodon. Basilosaurs and Zygorizes. Giant ancient Christmas whales, for example, Basilosaurus, also occupied the upper positions of the food chain, competing with Megalodon for large animals and whales. The ancestors of modern braids began to appear by the end of the existence of Megalodon. Groups of these whaling could successfully compete for production and even attack young or weakened megalodons, reducing their number and accessibility of food. The flocks of ancient sharks, such as hemicicels and carcharodons, could attack or select prey from young or wounded megalodons. Some ancient sea crocodiles, such as Perxus, could reach more than 30 feet in length and occupy similar ecological niches, competing with young megalodons for prey and territory. Titanoboa was the largest snake that had ever existed on Earth, which lived about 58 million years ago, shortly after the extinction of dinosaurs. She reached impressive sizes, up to 50 feet in length and weighed more than tons. Despite this, even so huge, the predator could have dangerous opponents and competitors. Probably the most serious threat was other Titanoboa, competing for the territory, food resources, and partners. Fights between such giants could lead to serious injuries or even death. Giant ancient crocodiles, reaching lengths up to 40 feet, could successfully compete with Titanoboa for food and territory. The clashes between these reptiles could be cruel and dangerous, especially in water or near the coastline. Carbone mice. A huge freshwater turtle, the diameter of the shell of which reached 7 feet. Carbonemus had very powerful jaws capable of applying serious injuries, and could successfully defend the Titanoboa attacks. Large ancient sharks that inhabited the oceans and entered the mouths of the rivers could pose a threat to Titanoboa, especially for young individuals, when they swam or hunted in shallow water. Some predatory mammals, such as ancient creodons, could be potential competitors, especially for young prey or carrion. Direct clashes were probably rare, but competition for resources existed. Huge ancient fish, such as Arapim or other large predatory species, could compete with Titanoboa for food, especially in fish rivers and lakes.
Dinosaurs are amazing creatures that have prevailed on the planet for about 160 million years. Their variety is amazing, and during this time they set many records and achievements in different categories. And so let's start with the achievements of the dinosaurs that the Mother Nature established for them. The strongest dinosaur is a Tyrannosaurus rex. The Rex Tyrannosaurus possessed one of the most powerful bite forces among all terrestrial predators in the history of the Earth. Scientists evaluate the power of his bite at about 57,000 newtons, which allowed him to easily crush the bones and break the meat of even the largest victims. Thanks to such powerful jaws, the Tyrannosaurus occupied the top of the food chain of the late Chalk period. The weakest dinosaur is a Microraptor. The Microraptor was one of the smallest and most vulnerable predatory dinosaurs that reached the size of a modern raven. Despite his dexterity and the ability to plan from trees, he could not effectively resist the larger and stronger rivals. Because of this, the Microraptor is considered one of the weakest and most defenseless dinosaurs of his time. The highest dinosaur is Sauropodomorpha. Sauropodomorpha is considered the highest of the famous dinosaurs. Its height could reach about 60 feet. A huge length of the neck allowed him to easily get foliage from the highest trees inaccessible to other animals. Thanks to his incredible growth, Sauropodomorpha dominated the vegetable niche of the late Cretaceous period. The lowest dinosaur is Epidioxypteryx. Epidioxypteryx is considered one of the lowest and small dinosaurs that have ever existed. Its height was only about 10 inches. It was a small feathered dinosaur with a very unusual appearance, including long decorative feathers on the tail. Its miniature dimensions made it very vulnerable to most predators of their time. The most severe dinosaur is Argentinosaur. The Argentinosaur is considered the most severe dinosaur that has ever lived on the planet. Its weight could exceed 70 tons. Thanks to gigantic size, he absorbed huge amounts of plant food daily to maintain the energy of his massive body. His colossal weight made him almost invulnerable to most predators of his time. The lightest dinosaur is Anchiornis. Anchiornis is considered one of the lightest dinosaurs. Its weight was only about 110 grams. This tiny feathered dinosaur resembled a small modern bird, had light bones and a body, perfectly adapted for life on trees and short flights. Thanks to his low weight, he could easily maneuver and avoid predators. The most warm-blooded dinosaur is Deinonychia. Darkon is considered one of the most warm-blooded dinosaurs, good, giving her high metabolic level and an active lifestyle. This predator had high energy, quick movements and significant endurance, which indicates a good regulation of body temperature. Such characteristics allowed Deinonychia to successfully hunt and prosper in various environmental conditions. The coldest dinosaur is Stegosaur. Stegosaur is considered one of the coldest dinosaurs due to a low metabolic level and a relatively slow lifestyle. Its massive body and large dorsal plates could serve to regulate temperature, helping it absorb solar heat or, conversely, cool. Thanks to this, the Stegosaurus successfully survived in the conditions of the changing climate of the late Jurassic period. The most evil dinosaur is Spinosaur. Spinosaurus is considered one of the most evil and aggressive dinosaurs that have ever existed on the planet. Its gigantic dimensions, powerful jaws, and sharp teeth made him a formidable adversary, capable of hunting even large victims. This ferocious predator dominated his ecosystems, often displacing other predators from their territories. The kindest dinosaur is Mazor. Maiazavra is considered one of the kindest and most caring dinosaurs that have ever existed on the planet. She became famous for an exceptionally careful attitude to her offspring, nursing the cubs after hatching, which is unusual for reptiles. Thanks to such care, the cubs of the Maiasaurs had much more chances to survive and develop successfully. The most stupid dinosaur is Stegosaur. Stegosaur is considered one of the most stupid dinosaurs because of its unusually small brain, the size of which was approximately from a walnut with huge body size. The level of intelligence of this dinosaur was low even by the standards of large herbivorous animals, which greatly limited its ability to quickly respond to environmental changes. Nevertheless, the Stegosaurs successfully existed millions of years, compensating for the lack of intelligence with strong protection and simple instincts. The most striking dinosaur is a Sinosauropteryx, which possessed an expressive orange-white color that helped it stand out among other species. Bright stripes on his tail and body probably served as a means of communication with relatives and a way of scaring the predators. This unique color design makes Sinosauropteryx one of the most noticeable and colorful representatives of the prehistoric world. The most intelligent dinosaur is a Trutod, a holder of a relatively large brain compared to body size. Its developed senses and the ability to complex behavior allowed to effectively hunt, communicate and act in flocks. The high level of intelligence provided Trutodon with significant advantages in survival among other predators of the late Cretaceous period. The most deep-water dinosaur is the Spinosaur, which was perfectly adapted to life and hunting in water. Thanks to the elongated body, a powerful tail and a special structure of the extremities, he could effectively swim and immerse himself in significant depths, pursuing prey. These unique features made Spinosaurus a successful hunter in water bodies of their time. The most highly flying dinosaur is the Microraptor, which has a unique ability to plan a planning flight thanks to the 4 wings covered with feathers. This small predator could rise to a significant height and fly between the trees, pursuing its prey. Its excellent flight qualities made the Microraptors one of the most successful and maneuverable feathered dinosaurs of their time. The most toothy dinosaur is considered to be a hadrosaur, also known as a plastic dinosaur, which possessed about 1,000 small and sharp teeth. These teeth were located in dense rows, forming an effective surface for grinding hard vegetables. Thanks to this tooth apparatus, Gyrosaurs could successfully eat even the coolest plants, prosperous in various ecosystems. The most clawed dinosaur is Tyrannosaurus, famous for its incredibly long claws, which reached almost 3 feet in length. These huge claws were used not only to protect against predators, but also in order to easily tear the leaves and branches from high trees. Despite the frightening look, Tyrannosaurus was a peaceful herbivore dinosaur, whose claws were the main tool for survival. The most hardy dinosaur is an Edmontosaurus, capable of overcoming huge distances in search of food and water. His powerful limbs and a strong physique allowed him to make distant migrations and successfully withstand the sharp changes in the climate. It is thanks to such endurance that Edmontosaurs could form extensive herds and prosper in various conditions. The most flock of dinosaur is usually considered a cycling, who allegedly hunted groups and demonstrated a high level of coordination. The remains of several bike cyclists found along with the total prey indicate a joint hunt. Such collective tactics allowed cycling to cope even with prey that surpasses them in size and strength. The most single among dinosaurs is considered to be a Tyrannosaurus of Rex, who, according to scientists, led a rather secluded lifestyle. Fossils of fossils rarely indicate group accumulations of these predators. It is assumed that such a way of life allowed the Tyrannosaurus to hunt and survive without the need to share the prey and territory with relatives. The most venomous dinosaur is the Ornithischia, in which, according to scientists, there were toxic glands located in the area of the upper jaw. Deep furrows on the teeth could contribute to the introduction of poison into the wounds of the victim, which greatly simplified the hunt. Although the evidence remains indirect, the Ornithischia is often mentioned as one of the few possible poisonous dinosaurs. The most fluffy dinosaur is considered to be Yutyrannus, the fossils of which indicate dense plumage throughout the entire body. These feathers helped him keep warm, making it adapted to a cooler climate. It is amazing that such a large and powerful predator could wear such a feathery outfit, emphasizing the incredible variety of the appearance of dinosaurs. The most family dinosaur is Maiasaura, which is often called a good mother deer. Fossil certificates indicate her concern for the offspring. The nests found show that she fed and protected the cubs after hatching. Such caring distinguished Maiasaura from many other reptiles, usually leaving masonry after laying eggs. The most secretive dinosaur is often called Psittacosaurus, which possessed discrete coloring and compact dimensions. These features allowed him to be perfectly disguised in thick vegetation and avoid meetings with predators. Thanks to the cautious character and the ability to merge with the environment, the Psittacosaurus remained almost invisible to enemies. The strangest dinosaur is often called Theropods thanks to its extremely unusual combination of signs. This creation had incredibly long claws, reaching almost 3 feet in length, a massive body and a small head with a beak-shaped mouth. Despite the fear of claws and the frightening appearance, Tyrannosaurus, according to scientists, was herbivorous. This emphasizes its uniqueness among dinosaurs. The most loud dinosaur is usually considered Parasaurolophus, which had an elongated bone comb on his head. This crest served as a kind of resonance camera, which allowed to publish powerful, low-frequency sounds. Thanks to such pipe signals, Parasaurolophus could interact with relatives at large distances and warn about danger. The most quiet dinosaur is often called Ornithischia due to its light physique and the lack of bulky sound devices. Thanks to the long and thin limbs, he could quickly and silently move along the plains in search of food. Such lightness and dexterity made an Ornithischia one of the most inconspicuous representatives of the dinosaur. The most prolific dinosaur is Maiasaura, which laid the extensive masonry of eggs, often numbering several dozen pieces. These giant colonies of nests indicate mass reproduction and close joint survival of offspring. Such a high fertility, supplemented by active concern for the brood, significantly increased the chances of preserving and spreading the species. The most long-lived dinosaur is often called Apatosaurus, whose potential lifetime could exceed 100 years. A massive body, a slow metabolism and a calm herbivorous lifestyle contributed to the achievement of such an impressive life expectancy. Thanks to these features, apatosaurs could retain their positions in the ecosystem for decades and transfer genetic information to the next generation. The smallest dinosaur is often called Compsognathus, a small predator whose size did not exceed the turkey. Due to miniature physique and rapid metabolism, he probably lived only a few years, much less than large herbivorous giants. Small sizes and fast generational shifts helped compasses to quickly adapt to changing conditions. The most voracious dinosaur is the Argentinosaurus, whose weight could exceed 70 tons. To maintain such a tremendous mass, he needed a huge amount of plant food daily, which he mined, moving through the vast territories. Thanks to this, the appetite of the giant, the Argentinosaurs easily replaced competitors from zones with rich pastures. The smallest dinosaur is often considered Compsognathus, one of the most miniature predators in the Mesozoic fauna. Due to modest sizes and relatively low energy needs, he needed only a small amount of small production, such as lizards or insects, to survive. Such a moderate diet made a compass of a very effective inhabitant of its time. These unique records and achievements show incredible diversity and adaptive abilities of dinosaurs. We watched this video. Put your finger up and leave the comments. Subscribe to the channel and click on the bell so as not to miss new and interesting videos from the Real, Unreal channel.